I'm Pamela Henry-Biskup.
Hi, I'm Austen Henry-Biskup.
And what we have going here is a very futuristic city, kind of very dystopian. It's supposed to be like a post-apocalyptic event, so there are like people that got very displaced by that, so they all kind of live over there, and they live in the shipping containers, and they just have to kind of scrabble for what they're going to live in or make their housing out of. But then we have the big corporation over here, the All Bad Inc., which kind of owns the whole city and controls everything. And they're not really very nice to their mine employees over there, but they're really nice to like their corporate employees in the big city. Now they have yoga class and restaurants, and I don't know, what do you want to add to that?
Yeah, so you can see in the back we have the main corporate building that is supposed to be kind of more industrial at the bottom. There's a little bit of graffiti down in there, a lot of exposed tubing. That's something I really enjoyed doing with Cyberpunk, is a lot of exposed tubing with the new macaroni pieces that LEGO re-released for us. That was really good. So yeah, and then it gets kind of more modern, kind of an office building at the top. And then most of the other buildings, we didn't really have a design for what they were supposed to look like because we wanted them to look like they kept getting added onto. So we started out with the more basic old-fashioned architecture at the base, and as we went up, we kept just adding little weird cubicles and different colors to make it look like they ran out of room to spread out, so all they could do was build up, and they had to just keep adding little buildings, like you have a police station up at the top and a train station and a hotel and different things like that.
Yeah, so that's such a cool technique. And talk about the way you decided to use color in this build, because it's really interesting, the colors throughout the buildings and architecture that you have here.
We definitely decided we wanted to use dull colors. There is we did make our police force orange using the old Galaxy Squad figures because they were a good, cheaper alternative. But anything that's bright is mainly a painted accent color. The idea is that this would still just be a cement building that they added a little more life to. But overall, everything's supposed to be a little bit darker and kind of a Blade Runner feel. Very old and dark, I guess, yeah.
See, then you've got several levels of monorail running through here. So how'd you kind of lay that out and plan how that was going to happen in the build?
The only kind of planning we really did was where each building was going to go. We didn't really know what each building was going to look like, but we had a layout, and we built some pre-made tracks that we would just kind of lay down when we knew, like when we got all the buildings to a certain level, we would lay down the shape of the track and then kind of decide like, oh, it's going to go through this building, so we need to build an opening, we need to do this and that. So I think we started out by making tracks that went in certain ways that then just kind of, like, we didn't have anything done, and we just did the tracks, and then the tracks would be added in as we were building.
Perfect. Well, then let's keep moving our way down through here and talk about some of the buildings we've got in kind of the middle section here.
Well, as he was saying before, every bottom level of every building is supposed to be like an old-fashioned building that might have been built in like the 20th century. So they look really normal. Like this used to be a bank, but then this is so far in the future, banks don't really matter anymore. So it's actually been changed into a bar. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yeah, with like the wood tile looking there.
Yeah. So, but we tried to make it like a really fancy building. So like the bas relief is actually Han Solo and carbonate. But actually worked perfectly. And just, so like he was saying before, there's each building, like this is just kind of normal building. And you can't see it because the lights went out, but there's a whole grocery store in here. And then we just went to the next level where I was like, okay, we're going to do a crazy modern apartment building, you know? So that's how we got the black with all the kind of weird red windows.
Tiling and stuff on the side.
Yeah. And then Austin had this great plan that, like, there's some guy over here that works at the corporation he has so much money that he's made his own little private, you know, Asian garden in here. It's all enclosed in glass and no one can go in there but the gardener, you know? Yeah. So... yeah, just lots of fun stuff like that.
Yeah. Okay, very cool. And then in the back here, we've got some lights and stuff going on.
Yeah, so in the back, I really wanted to do a theater and really get that kind of old classic theater with all the lights blinking and flashing and do a really big cinema sign kind of like the Palace Cinema modular building, but I decided to take kind of my own idea on it and use pneumatic tubes, actually, that you can just cut at any length and use the simple clip piece, like 1x1 plate with a clip attached to it, to just kind of shape those how you want to. And it works really well, and it's easy to read. I did a couple signs in here that are actually in Japanese that they do translate. One translates to hotel, and one I think translates to food in front of this little restaurant. So I really wanted to get a lot of signs. I remember from watching Blade Runner and Fifth Element, there's always these blinking signs going off. And sadly, I was not able to find a way to actually light up those signs, but I was able to get kind of that tube-shaped light sign that you see, like an open sign at a restaurant or something like that.
Exactly. And then this building here looks like we're kind of getting into the worst part of town. Not so good living conditions.
Yeah. Well, the idea on this building is this is the end of the city. Past there, like it all got bombed out. So if you look, the side of this building is all carved out and has been bombed out. And then these people that live over here that work in the mine, this is where they have to shop. It's kind of like the black market, marketplace, where they can get things that they need. There's so much fun stuff going on in here. You can't even see half of it, but Austen made this beautiful like Japanese restaurant back inside there. And there's a Star Wars shop underneath there, back inside there. Because you got to have your priorities in the future. Star Wars shop.
Still very popular.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you remember in Blade Runner, but there's like the guy that serves the noodles, like the noodle bar. So there's kind of like a noodle bar back over there in that corner. And pizza, of course. And we got a nightclub going on over here. I happen to love the old dark turquoise color of Lego brick, so I collect them whenever I can find them. So that's why this whole like nightclub thing over here, I'm like, I'm gonna use my dark turquoise.
That old rock miners type.
That's exactly what it's from. But I just love that color, and then this is a really fun thing down here. We don't always build together, like we build side by side, but we're working on separate stuff. But we decided to do this building together, and I just love the way that it came out. It just really has almost like the Star Wars cantina type of look to it or something. And I think we just decided that's a little restaurant or something.
Yeah,
right?
it's a nice little restaurant, exactly. So then moving over here we have, which is kind of the living space of the poor people, the workers that are kind of being forced to live in this area by the corporation. And all they're really being provided as, like, for their services are these old containers that, used to travel all over the world to bring goods to different places. And so they have these containers to make as houses, so they kind of just cut holes in to make windows and doors, and all the windows are all different colors because all they could find was just, like, piles of trash. They could find some windows, certain things like that. So it's a very scrappy, very kind of looks very tedious, like it's going to fall over any second. It actually did fall apart in transportation, and I had to rebuild a lot of it. But yeah, it's definitely a reminiscence of the stacks from Ready Player One. It's just that it doesn't really have any of the RVs and things like that. It's mainly just the shipping containers. But that was a really fun section to build. She did a lot of the containers. We kind of came up with the basic idea of what they would look like, and she did a lot of the containers, and then I was the one who really put them all together and added all the little details, all the ladders and things. When I did first build it, there was supposed to be a ladder that went to every section of the whole stack, so it really was realistic in that sense that you could get anywhere if you were a little figure, but I don't know if it got all put back together that way.
You can see a few ladders going on there, so it's roughly going.
We literally opened the box and it was just a pile of containers when we got here, so that was pretty exciting.
Little extra setup.
Yeah, a little extra setup time that we didn't really, optimize for, but hey, it is what it is.
And then finally, it looks like we got the mining operation down here.
Yeah, so this is something that we both really wanted to have some sort of industrial area that looked like it was working. And I know personally that, like, one of the things I first worked on before any of this was built was my mechanism that allows the trains to pick up and drop off these cargo containers to really look like they were being transported away from the mining operation to wherever they needed the material. It's supposed to be some miracle material that, yeah, it did. Uh-oh. I don't know what just happened. Oh.
Yeah, it's moving parts. That happens.
Moving parts. I spent about a week designing it, and it actually turned out to be the most simple iteration that I designed that worked out the best. As you can see, occasionally breaks down. It will go a really long time without working, and then sometimes it will work or barely work at all. Yesterday it wouldn't work very well, and then today it just decided to work, so you never really know. It's Legos, and they like to mess up. But yeah, so that was the first thing I designed. I really wanted to make sure I got that working, and that it wasn't something using like Mindstorms or any sort of sensors or electronic stuff. I just wanted to be purely mechanical to kind of stick with the very mechanical idea of the monorail, because the monorail uses the little switch on the sides of the motor to send it back and forth. So it's a very simple mechanical idea, and I wanted to stay true to the monorail look, basically. And I also added in, just for fun, a great ball contraption that was kind of my own take on a great ball contraption, because I personally didn't want to have a bunch of little soccer balls and basketballs rolling around. So I thought I could try and find a way to use those new Ninjago like metallic orb pieces. And they, I can say, are a pain to make work, because they are somewhat symmetrically like round, but they're still oval, and they get caught on stuff. And I finally got it working, and I am very pleased with it. We've had some problems with it, but it seems to be working really well. And this is my first great ball contraption, so I am proud of it. And
Maybe we'll see some modules in the GBC from you in the future.
Maybe. I really love anything that's kinetic, anything that has some sort of continuous motion. It's my favorite part, and I always love doing those sections.
Okay. Yeah, so this whole layout is just incredible. I love when you two work together and how seamlessly it all comes together with your collaborative projects. So do you know how long the whole thing is, kind of the dimensions of it?
It's about 10 feet long. In fact, we had, I guess, originally told them 8. And so when we got here and we started to set up, we're like, oh my goodness, we're going to either have to take the trains off completely, or they're going to have to find us more space. And luckily they were so gracious and they did find us a bigger space to set up in. But yeah, it's about 10 feet long and about 5 feet deep through most of it.
And any idea how many pieces in it? I know that's a popular public question that you get.
We think probably between 50,000 to 70,000, I think. Somewhere in that area, yeah. Because there's a lot of small pieces and detail on this thing, you know, when you look around. Oh, I want to show you, can I show you some fun stuff?
Oh, definitely, yes. We love seeing the fun stuff.
We put lots of funny Easter eggs in here. And one of them is I was building one day and I looked down and I was like, oh my goodness, we have to put the Beatles in crossing the road. So it's like Abbey Road back there. And I literally have only heard 2 people find it in the past 2 days, which is actually pretty fun.
Well, it's definitely maybe for the older crowd a little bit more than...
Well, that's true. That's true. They were both older. Like no kids, I think, would ever get it. But yeah, there's just lots of fun stuff in here. I put it like I love this figure, like the Bumblebee figure.
Okay.
So I put her in there, and then that just came out in that new Halloween set. So like, oh, I got to put the pumpkin in because it's just so cool. I'm trying to think of what else. This is like just a chemical spill. Nobody's even coming to clean it up. You know, it's like...
Just put some barriers around it. It'll evaporate.
Yeah, no big deal. It's just green and, you know, really glowing. But hey, it's fine. It's fine.
It looks like you've got some maybe custom sort of third-party stuff in here as well.
Yeah, we generally try to build all with original Lego piece, but that sandbag piece was just so cool. We had to do it. So basically the only third-party pieces we have are the sandbags, I think, and
Those railings.
like some of these crates.
Oh, right.
Just because they're so cool. These.
The alt bricks
That's
railing
alt
there?
bricks,
Okay.
yeah, And I think we might have a few alt brick plants in and around. And, you know, like some people are just purists and they don't like to use that stuff. But I figure if it's a piece that Lego isn't really making and I want to use it, I think it seems like it's okay, right?
Yeah. And it adds some cool details to the build. So
It adds some really amazing details. Yeah. So some other funny things is Austin just fell in love with this funny like Martian figure. So one day he stuck them all on there and they've just been living there. Like we just left them there because they were just too funny.
marching through the city there.
Yeah, marching through the city. And just some of our little funny vendors we have in here. We have like another kind of Star Wars weapon store, and there's like a wig store back here, and there's a hat store up here, and then this is supposed to be kind of like the makeshift hospital tent here, you know, because again, this is where the kind of poor workers live. But I put the mummy figure in there. Like, so he's waiting in line to get into the hospital.
He's in pretty bad shape.
He's in pretty bad shape. He's spent a little bit too much time in the mines, I think. But just other fun stuff. We got the butcher here. He's got his cleaver and his bloody clothes. And this guy came straight out of one of our other builds. It was a little, he's actually selling dynamite. So, hey, in the future, you can just go buy dynamite. What the heck?
Everything's available.
That's right.
So you've both done some pretty massive collaborations in the past now. Have you gotten good at kind of building so that when you bring all this to a show, you can set it up fairly easy and it's not too much work? Are you kind of learning more over the years with that?
I would say we definitely planned this one better, and we would have probably set it up really fast if the containers hadn't crashed in the box. So, yeah, that kind of put a whole nother, a number of hours extra that we weren't really planning for. But it all worked out. We got it to work. But yeah, I would say we definitely planned ahead, don't you think? We've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, for sure. For sure.
So then, is there plans in the future to add on to this, maybe build higher, taller, anything bigger?
Yeah, our original plan was for these buildings to be much taller. We ran out of time. So that is something we might be considering for the future, is actually making it taller and really giving it that kind of crazy Fifth Element feel. Like, our original idea was we were going to have flying cars, like the taxi, all that. We just completely ran out of time, though. So we're kind of like, right now what we're trying to decide is how much we want to add to this. We also really need to store our Lego at home because it's in terrible shape. And then we already have our idea for our next mock. So it's like, we have to decide how to split our time.
Okay. Yeah, understandable.
It's a dilemma, I think, of all builders, right? So, yeah.
Well, I think this whole layout turned out amazing. You got all the moving parts and everything, the lights, the building's just incredible. So thanks for bringing this out to the show and showing it off, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.